one and all, and listen to tales of excitement and adventure. Tales of daring heroes, savage monsters, and bards who just couldn't keep it in their pants. Tales of friendship, nobility, drunken foolishness, and unforgettable fun. These are tales of role-playing games, fair listeners, and this is Rollin' Bones. My name is Ryan Howard, and I shall be your guide. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Rollin' Bones with Ryan Howard, your source for the best in RPG interviews. I am your host and king of the boneheads, Ryan Howard, and joining me this evening, he is back for a second appearance. The last time he was on, we were talking about the first product from Mystic Dragon, that being the Mobius Deck of Wonders. This time, Mystic Dragon Games is a brand new product. We are in the last 24 hours of this Kickstarter campaign for Forged in Shadows Adventure, Forging Zeros into Heroes. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to Rollin' Bones, Michael Walker. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Gotcha. Well, Michael's picture just got small on Zoom. What is going on? 1 second. Okay, there we go. Cool. Better now. All right. Cool. Well, yeah. Oh, sorry. What was that?
Smaller might be better for your viewers for my face anyway.
No. We want to see you. Gotcha. Well, as we discussed, last time, obviously you guys were talking about this Mobius Deck of Wonders, and that campaign ended up being, successfully funded. How did that end up going for you guys?
Man, it far exceeded our expectations. It was our first project, and we were scheduled to fulfill that February of this year, and we're on pace to start fulfillment, and then COVID hit and shut everything down, and that put us behind 2-3 months trying to get shipping squared away, because most of the shipping channels were shut down. Shipping costs were through the roof. They're still pretty high, but we managed to find some workarounds and got the product to our backers, and the response has been amazing. Everyone's been really happy with the quality of the product and excited to use the Mobius Deck of Wonders in their games. And so that was a good feeling, when you put your heart and soul into something and you're not sure how it's going to be received. And then everyone, just gives you positive vibes, and so that was a good feeling of validation that the concept we had in mind really resonated with the gaming community.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's always cool to have a product like the one that you guys had there. Just something that a lot of people struggle with as GMs for all kinds of games is, coming up with unique magic items that, do cool things and are interesting to your players, and, giving people another resource for that really is a good utility for any dungeon master to have.
Yes. And what makes the Mobius Deck of Wonders unique, well, a couple things that make it unique is, one, it doesn't have any rules written on the cards. And at first you might think, oh, that's not a positive thing. Because, I would like to have reference of the rules. But what it does is it allows you to, these cards now could be used indefinitely. Any gaming system, no matter what the rule system is, because as the game master, you control the rules. So without any rules printing on them, on the cards themselves, it really frees you up. Your creativity, and you can reuse the cards. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're playing 4th edition, 5th edition, Pathfinder. You're not shoehorned in. You just use the rules that are printed on the cards. Now we did provide generic rules agnostic for each card in the deck as a fold out sheet, but the rules themselves aren't printed on the cards. So you can use these indefinitely. You're never gonna not be able to use them because they're outdated.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one thing that, that awesome concept of just being able to use this with any system, this is carried over into this new Kickstarter, because this adventure that you guys have here, Forged in Shadows, which currently is on Kickstarter in the final 24-hour stretch here, this is also compatible with any RPG system, correct?
Yes. It's probably more geared towards fantasy, but certainly you could adapt it for other genres. But it's written in a fantasy world and world that we're developing. Adventures takes place primarily in the city of Valhalla, which is an ancient dwarven city, and you can pop that city anywhere in your own world, or you can change the name and substitute it in a Pathfinder world, or Forgotten Realms, and you could run it with no problems. And so once you finish the adventure and you kind of tally up how your character fared throughout the adventure and trying to figure out what class they're best suited for, you can then take that information and then convert it to whatever game system you want to continue on playing them to first level and on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, the tagline for this adventure is Forging Zeros into Heroes. So, yes. Michael, tell us a little bit about what this adventure actually does for an RPG campaign that's getting started.
So the idea here is, I've always been kind of fascinated with the idea of what was my character like before they became a hero. Of course, a lot of us come up with background stories, but it'd be nice to actually role play that background, and what was that pivotal moment that spurred them drop the shovel from the farm and become an adventurer. I mean, adventure is a very dangerous lifestyle, and most people, commoners, avoid it because they like to live. And so, what spurred them to become adventurer? So basically, the Forge of Shadows, you start out first. You make a background of your character, just like you would any other game system. In this case, we've provided what I like to call, or what we're calling, the ultimate character creation worksheet. And this is something I've actually been using in all my games for the last 25 years, and basically helps flesh out every little bit of detail about your character, their background, debts, obligations, organizations they might be involved in, their family history, how they feel about thieving, how they feel about magic. So you have all this documented. So it actually makes, so once you're done with that, it makes it role playing that character a lot easier, because if you come across scenarios that might have been covered in this worksheet, you already know how your character is going to respond and react. And likewise, your GM is going to have a very intimate knowledge of your character as well, and they can help tie in some of your background into the story moving forward. So you start out making a background for your character, and then there's a chart of 100 different career paths or commoner classes, farmer, gravedigger, city guardsman. So you can either just pick one from the list, or if you just want to see what the fate rolls for it, you can roll and let the dice choose for you. And that commoner class will come with a set of skills that are, if you chose blacksmith, you'll be skilled in blacksmith and maybe one or two other skills, and then you can choose a couple more other skills that kind of round out your character a little bit. And then there's a point buy system for your stats, and if you're playing with races that have racial adjustments, you throw those in there, and you're ready to go. And then the whole adventure uses a very simple percentile dice system. So even for this is perfect for like new players that you may be overwhelmed with a lot of rules, or veteran players. They'll pick this up in no time at all. And so the entire adventure, you just use percentile dice, determine outcomes of tests, and the adventure is kind of set around your parties in venturing through the city and some of the outskirts, and they're come across certain side quests that kind of challenge them, and a lot of these are class based. Your fighter, cleric, rogue, and so you have a tally sheet. You keep track of all your successes and failures, and then by the end of the adventure, you kind of look at your sheet you've tallied up over the course of the adventure, and you kind of gives you a, in some places, more clear than others, but gives you an idea of what class is my character best suited for. Instead of going in with an idea with a class already predetermined, this adventure forges a path for you.
Absolutely. I love that idea, and I love that this is something you've been doing for a long time, and something in fact, I'll go ahead and say it. If you can email me that sheet that you use, I don't know if I've asked for this before. I feel like you mentioned this at some point, and I might have asked you for it, or you might have sent it. But if you can send me that sheet, I definitely want to start using that in my games. Because something that kind of bothers me, maybe bothers is the wrong word, but something that I notice about RPGs, having one level of a class in any RPG setting should be extremely rare. The fact that your characters, if you start at level 1, the fact that your characters have any kind of advanced skill in anything gives them already a leg up on just your average commoner who in every setting has maybe 1 to 2 hit points, a decent perception, and that's about it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so one thing through testing, my wife, Kim, and my business partner, I ran her and some friends through this as a play test. And she randomly chose the commoner class for her character, which was a gravedigger. And she thought about it. She's like, "Do I want to be a gravedigger?" She's like, "No, I'm gonna stick with it." And she went through the adventure, and she had some pretty fantastic things that happened to her along the way, and she gained some a very minor supernatural ability that was picked up during the quest, and at the end of the adventure, it was very clear to her path was either cleric or paladin, and she felt more drawn to being a cleric. So she wound up making a half orc cleric from a gravedigger, and in fact. Her character is on the Kickstarter page. We had our illustrator, Tatiana, draw up her before and after photo picture. So that's the thing that's really neat about it. And one thing she really appreciated was because you're commoners, most, you have a very minor starting equipment and money. You may start with buy 4 copper. That's it. And so she really loved the fact that it really brought things back into more of a reality. Like, oh shoot, I really need to be really frugal with my 3 copper, and it she really appreciated that you can just go right into a combat situation just without any worry. There's planning has to be done. You got to really make a conscious effort before you do anything, because you don't have any supernatural abilities or spells or heavy duty skills. And so all the players that we've tested this really enjoyed that part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's something that I've found interesting. There have been a couple RPG systems recently that have kind of played around with this randomized starting state kind of thing. Like your background is randomized. The one that chiefly comes to mind right now is Zweihander. Zweihander, if you play according to the rules as Daniel wrote them out in Zweihander, you randomly roll for everything. So you could end up being a one-legged prostitute, as Daniel said his first character that he rolled up on the table when he created it was. You could end up being like my character that I rolled up the first time I opened up Zweihander. My character ended up being a doomsayer, which is, one of those religious fanatics that whips themselves. I was like, what am I going to do with this? But as you move through the world and as your character, experiences things, you begin to see the path forward. And I like that you guys are doing this and creating this adventure designed to, take these backgrounds and turn them into characters to, move on into a larger world, a larger adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really, get the most fun out of this adventure is to go in with no preconceived class in mind. Just let the system, just roll the dice, go through the adventure, and see what happens at the end. Of course, you can, even from a character's point of view, maybe you're a farmer and you aspire to be, a wizard, right? But much like in real life, sometimes we're not exposed to the right situations, and you actually find out that I'm actually better suited as a fighter. Even though in my mind, I really like to aspire to be a wizard one day, but I don't have the aptitude or the skills for that. So that's the neat part about this adventure is don't go in with any preconceived, at least yourself. It's okay if your character has preconceived, aspirations, but as a player, try not to go in with any preconceived ideas of what class you want to play. Let the system do its job, and you'll have a lot more fun in the end.
Yep, absolutely. And just again, because I know this kind of play, there's a certain kind of player that is very resistant to this kind of play. So I will say to if you want to call them min-maxers, power gamers, munchkins, whatever your term that you prefer for that, when it comes to stuff like this, just give it a try. That's what I will say. Just try it once. And any good GM will say, if you don't like what comes up, I'll let you try again. But just give it a whirl.
And I mean, everyone who's tried this has had so much fun. They actually didn't want to stop playing their characters. They want to immediately keep playing them, which is a great sign. That means you're doing something right. And I really feel like if we'll give this a chance, they'll really gonna enjoy it. And I played with very experienced gamers, but not very experienced gamers, and they all enjoyed this the experience of starting from zero and building from there. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to run as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Mobius Spin makes an appearance as an NPC in the game. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to spoil any surprises, but
Absolutely. And that's a good point of transition, because moving even beyond, what happens at the table, what this sets for an adventuring party moving forward. You guys at Mystic Dragon are, building brick by brick your own mythology around your own kind of fantasy setting. How does Forged in Shadows continue that development of kind of the Mystic Dragon verse, or the Mobius spin universe that you guys are building upon?
yeah, thanks for asking about that. Yeah, so the bulk of the venture, as I mentioned, starts in Valkaldar Citadel, which is the birthplace of Mobius Spin. So there's an immediate tie in with Mobius and the Mobius Deck of Wonders. In fact, in the timeline of events, uh, this is pre Mobius Deck of Wonders. So this is before Mobius creates the Mobius Deck of Wonders, and and this Fortune Shadows is just the stepping stone. So we have plans in mind of taking this zero level concept and expanding to a whole epic adventure that involves Mobius Spin.
Mm-hmm.
That the players can take those zero level characters, convert them to first level characters, and then go on a grand quest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for anyone unfamiliar with what you guys have done so far, Mobius Spin is he was your business partner's player character in that long running campaign you guys had. Is that correct?
Yes, you have a great memory, Ryan. Yes, Stephen Dudley. So, in fact, that campaign is still ongoing. We've been playing for a part of 4 or 5 years now, not consistently, but so that was his character that we've built from level 1 all the way up to level 20. So over that stretch of time, and so he's the man behind the legend of Mobius Spin.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Also, Kim, my wife and partner, her character from that same campaign makes a cameo appearance that the NPCs will be interacting with as well. So it's a little tidbit that hasn't been shared anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And real quick in chat, shout out to Gamertarians. Just we'll discuss this a little bit at the end of the show, because I want to give Michael the full time here. But I'll be appearing on their stream tomorrow night, so more information on that as we end the show. But for anyone who, like I said, is brand new to the Mystic Dragons universe here, Mobius Spin is the Elemenster, if you will, of Mystic Dragons. He is the linchpin around which all of this is built, and it's cool to see. It really warms my heart as someone who has a character who went from level 1 to level 20, and is now trying to shoehorn that character into every single game that I run for every single table. That other people also feel that way, and would like to build universes around their player characters that they spent so much time with. I love that, and I feel like everyone out there who's played a sufficient amount of RPGs also loves that.
And I could be wrong here, but because I don't know every single universe or game system RPG, but at least you spoke of Elemenster, and there's been other Keystone mage or wizard type characters through other game systems and genres, and they're all human. And the best of my knowledge, there might be an elf in there, half elf in there, but to my knowledge, this is the first dwarf that has kind of taken on that lead, linchpin role. it kind of, you know,
Hmm.
envelops the whole universe.
Absolutely. And that may say something about, there's always the stereotypes that different people take on in medieval fantasy, and for dwarfs it always seems to be you're the fighter, or you're some kind of faith-based character, either a paladin or a cleric, usually a cleric. So
Yep,
it's
you're
cool to
absolutely right.
see. Yeah, I love it when people, and again, this is another, I don't mean to dunk on min maxers, because I've done my fair share of optimizing myself. But it's always cool to see someone go for break away from the what's mechanically best for this character and think what would make a weird, interesting character. One of my players in a game that I was playing for a long time on Saturdays made a dwarven bard, which ended up being a very fun and interesting character. And so it's cool to see, other players break the mold, and then you guys run with the ball here and build a universe around this character that broke the mold.
Yeah, I think it's easy, and of course, if everyone at the table is min maxing, that could be a fun experience too. But you know, the this character was developed and and brought to life by this ultimate character creation worksheet that I've been, making my forcing my players to do for every game, for every character they make for my games. And at first you're like, oh my gosh, just 4 pages, but it doesn't really take that long to fill out unless you're struggling to figure out. But it really helps you flesh out everything, and honestly, that's where Mobius Spin will spawn from, this character worksheet,
Mm-hmm.
which what's going to be included in the adventure book as well. So it helps you think outside the box, outside of numbers, which when you're playing the game system, it's easy to fall into that trap about stats, and because you want your character to be successful. If you start with a background and don't worry about any of those things, and just focus on what is a really neat concept for a character, and when you fill out the sheet and it prompts you on various things that you may have not even thought of, and it sparks an idea, like, oh, societies. Well, I didn't even thought about that. Oh yeah, he's going to be part of this thieves guild, or he's going to be part of this other type of guild, or organization, or secret society. And so then that spawns other ideas. So that's one of the things that I really love about this worksheet is, over the years I've just seen even brand new players just create really neat characters that are character based and not stat based.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And there's always going to be someone at the table who just doesn't connect with that particular style of play. I've known my fair share of those players. As someone who gets very much in the head of their character, I often struggle to GM for those players. But again, this is the perfect opportunity to just try it and see what happens, and see what kind of bonds you forge with characters. Because as you pointed out, when you go through this process, when you get inside a character's head and really understand, how they view the world, great things happen, and you end up with, if nothing else, incredible memories of the character that you embodied for a couple months, a year, a few years, 10 years, however long you end up playing a game. But, other things could come of this. You could end up writing a fantasy series like I'm trying to do, or,
Yeah.
building an RPG universe like you guys are doing.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because I still have that original worksheet that Stephen made a Mobius Spin with, and one of the things that made him prompt was the story behind how he came across the gavel, which is his weapon and his magical focus. And that's what's on this whole thing, because now that gavel is an actual magic item in the Mobius Deck of Wonders, and it's a very, it's pretty fantastical and iconic item. And in fact, we made a 3D model of Mobius Spin, and we just unlocked the STL file, so people back us can download the STD file, STL file, sorry, of the Mobius, and he has this gavel as part of the miniature, is in the miniature. So, and it's in the Mobius Deck of Wonders. So it's really cool how it's all kind of come together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, don't download any STD files. That might not end up.
Just,
yeah.
Just STLs.
And if you do have any STD files, don't put any flash drives into your computer.
Yeah, please. 2020 has already been enough of a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need any computer STDs. Now that we've said that, something's going to happen. I just know it. So we've talked a little bit about what this does at the table. We've talked about how it fits into the world that you're in, without spoiling anything, because obviously you want people who get this to not know the ending until they actually read it. Plot-wise, what are these commoners, this ragtag bunch of zero-level characters, what situation are they finding themselves in?
Well, so this won't be giving up too much information, but the adventure starts very uplifting, upbeat. There's a spring festival. There's carnival-like atmosphere, and people are enjoying themselves, enjoying it's a crafters festival, so there's lots of crafters. You can view their wares or purchase items, or if you're a crafter yourself, you can sell your items, and there's like games for kids, and it's just a fun environment. And then basically a portal opens up and all hell breaks loose, at least for the party, and they find themselves discovering this archaic message that was dropped, and so the quest involves them almost like a scavenger hunt, where they're trying to go throughout the city to cipher this code message and figure out where did this come from, and how does it tie in with this fantastic event that just happened that probably changed their life forever. And so, and that scavenger hunt type quest revolving around the secret message sends them off on these little mini quests to test their skills, fighter, cleric, and so forth. So and then there's some forested skill tests and stuff. So we try our best to it doesn't touch on every single class. I think the only class, like the basic class list, that doesn't really touch on is like barbarian, but I have some ideas still on that. It's about 95% written, so there's still some leeway. Maybe we can try to find a way to tie the barbarian in there, but it covers most of the basic classes, and so that's almost the gist of it. And then there's some pretty cool stuff that happens at the end that I will reserve from going into much detail.
Yeah. I mean, of the classes that are available in your typical fantasy RPG, the one that I feel like you're definitely born into, and this is the path that your life has led you to pretty much the entire time, would be probably the barbarian.
Yeah, and that's primarily one of the reasons. I'm certainly, there's probably exceptions to that rule, but you bring up a very valid point. It's one of those that it's usually like a situation where you're raised in. you were brought up in these traditions or in these ways, and so it's a little harder to make sense, but in a short adventure. This venture takes place depending on the size of the group and how long you play for, but it could span 3 to 4 game sessions. It's hard to justify the barbarian's path in that short amount of time. But certainly, you could make exceptions, I guess. It depends on the situation and the GM. I know there's a lot of very creative GMs out there that probably take our material and make some adjustments and try to tie that in if they really wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, one question I have, we've talked a lot around how lowborn, average, common people end up becoming adventurers. One thing that I also find fascinating in a lot of RPGs is how do highborn nobles, royalty, people who live a life of luxury end up deciding to forego all of that and become adventurers in their own right. Is that something that's addressed in this particular RPG? Is that a slant that you can take at your 0 level character?
Absolutely. You can start from basically skill. I would say skillless, but no trained skills like your average commoner that has no crafting skills or such, to all the way up to a noble. So yeah, a noble, just because they're noble and they're rich doesn't mean they're all suited for the life of adventure. So yeah, if you choose to take the there's a couple of classes that are in that noble or high society type, fit the bill there, and you can definitely do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean, one thing that I find fascinating about going from a noble background in RPGs, it makes a lot of sense in a certain twisted logic for a farmer or a butcher or a grave digger to think it's risky, but there's something else out there that I could push towards. There's something more than what I have here. It's kind of the Belle from Beauty and the Beast type. I want to adventure in the great wide somewhere. But from the perspective of a noble, someone who's had a lot of things handed to them, someone who's wealthy and well off and wants for nothing, what makes that person decide to forego the comforts of their everyday life and pick up a sword or a wizard's staff or a bow and rough it out in the wilderness where they could very easily get killed? And so I'm glad that you guys have planned for that contingency as well. How does that character, as well as the lowborn character, how do they end up on the adventure path? And so it's great to hear that that's something you guys have thought of.
Well, a lot of that is again going to be probably fleshed out in that worksheet, right? Mm-hmm. That's probably if I have a very cushy lifestyle. I don't want for anything, but maybe as you're filling this out, you're like, yeah, man, I really don't have any excitement. Everything, it's the doldrum of doing the same things, going to parties or, there's, so you can definitely flesh out that desire to, maybe they want to test their skills. Maybe, they carry a sword around ceremonial all the time, and, maybe they'd like to put it to use someday. So a lot of that will be, you could flesh out during the character creation process. You can absolutely play a noble, just have a set number of skills and you'll obviously start out with more access to more funds. So than your average commoner, but you still go through the same process of developing your character through the adventure.
Absolutely. Gotcha. So when it comes to the crowdfunding side of things, was the last Kickstarter the first one that you guys had worked on?
Yeah, that was our first experience. We had a great mentor in March Hubert, he did the ice cream dice. Those that are familiar with him, he designed both sets of dice for that campaign, and he was a great mentor and helped us, navigate the all the traps of starting your first Kickstarter, because from the outside looking in, it looks like, oh, it's probably not much into that. You just create something, make a page, and that's it. Anyone who's done a Kickstarter knows that there's a tremendous amount of work that goes even before you even get to that point. And so, yeah, that was our first Kickstarter. So we obviously learned a ton from that experience and applied it to this Kickstarter. And this was actually not even a planned Kickstarter. As I said, when we first, this is a free PDF adventure that we promised that the backers of the Mobius Deck of Wonders earned through a stretch goal that they unlocked. And it was originally just going to be a one-shot adventure. And, we just don't like to do anything halfway, we don't want to phone it in. We could have easily wrote a 10-page one-shot adventure and call it a day. But when this is done, it's going to be 30, 40 pages full with full color art cut from front to back, dozens plus NPCs that are fleshed out with illustrations, items, magic items, and a full-fledged adventure. And on top of that, this unique experience of starting from zero level. So we really wanted to give them value. If they're going to get something free, we'd like to give them something that they can sink their teeth in and be proud of, and that we could be proud of. And so, unfortunately, we just didn't have enough funds from the first Kickstarter, from the pre-order sales or the printed version. So we launched this Kickstarter, raise enough funds to cover the printing costs so we can get the cost down to print enough copies, and we could make it available for print at a larger scale. And from that, it kind of just, much like our other campaign, it kind of just blew up from there, and we have tons of add-ons. And if you missed the Mobius Deck of Wonders campaign, you can still, if you pledge even up as little as $5, you still have access to most of the things from the Mobius Deck of Wonders campaign, as well as the new stuff we have in this one. It's a really beautiful dice tray box and dice roller box from Talon and Claw, one-off custom dice bag, ours, and we have handmade dice that we never had before. We recently were able to negotiate fit the theme of the Forged in Shadows. They're a beautiful, like, mysterious looking purple and blacks. And then what else? And then we have the miniature of Mobius Spin that you can download the STL file, and then coins. We're gonna have some coins in this. All backers now are getting a free collectible coin with Vault Calder, Citadel on the front. So we're really excited about that as well. So we're trying to give everyone as much value as possible, and still have enough money reserved to do the run for the Forged in Shadows.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And for anyone who is looking at getting on this, just to let you guys know, the project is currently fully funded. So right now it's stretch goals to be unlocked. But there are really some doozies here as far as these stretch goals go that are still to be unlocked. There's a PDF poster, which is the next one that would be unlocked. We're looking at. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I would say that's going to be a really large scale poster that you could take to your local printer. It's going to be like 3 feet by 2 feet, so it's a really beautiful illustration. It's actually included in the adventure as well. it's smaller format, obviously, but this is so you can have a nice big if you want to have it printed out in your game room. So, or you can use it as a background for your computer screen. So.
Yeah, and then there's more illustrations, potentially an STL file for the shadow creature, which seems to be a pivotal player in this overall mystery that your characters are solving.
Absolutely. Yep.
At 18,000, there's a larger print run available. Another poster at 20,000. And then beyond that, in the 24,000 range, an actual, if I'm reading this correctly, an actual miniature for Mobius Spin.
Yep. Miniatures you can. So if you don't have access to a 3D printer, or or don't have one yourself, that'll give us the funds we need to put down a deposit to have a run of miniatures made. Mobius, and then beyond that, maybe even the shadow creature itself.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to the shadow creature miniature, without giving too much away about the story, how large is this miniature as far as like what the STL file would be, or what it would end up being size wise when printed?
So Mobius Spin is your standard like 28 millimeter size miniature, which is medium size for D&D and Pathfinder games. They're medium sized creatures.
Yep.
The shadow creature is considered a large creature, so scale that up maybe 2.5 times what Mobius Spin is. So it would take up a 2-inch by 2-inch area on a map.
Just reaching for an example. So the shadow creature would be something about like that size probably, as compared to like 28.
So I'm sorry, I misspoke. He's a large creature, so it'd still take up a 5-foot square. It would be tall.
Gotcha. So again, for anyone watching at home, that would be more akin to something like this.
I can't see what you're holding up, unfortunately.
It's a like frost giant from Reaper Miniatures. It's still a 5-foot square, but it's a larger miniature.
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Yep.
Cool. Well, that's all stuff that comes with the Kickstarter campaign. So as far as fulfillment, obviously this ends up going out the very end of Q1 2021, around March, if everything goes according to plan. When will this product be available on your marketplace, or just for general availability, if things go according to your current plan?
So we're kind of a stickler on this. We did this with Mobius, even though everything was ready. We had stuff waiting at the warehouse. We could have put it on our website to sell for that 3-4 months. We didn't. We chose not to because we wanted our backers to get the product in their hands first. I'm not speaking ill will towards other creators, but I'm a backer of projects, and I walk into a game store and there's product on the shelf. I'm like, hey, I haven't even got my copy yet. So we didn't want to do that. We wanted the backers. I mean, they're the reason why we're here. They're the reason why this was funded, that's even exists. So out of respect for them and appreciation for them, want to make sure that they got the product in their hands first. In fact, Mobius Deck of Wonders, just as of last week, is now available on our marketplace, on our website. We just want to make sure full fulfillment was done. Everyone had their copies. Everyone's happy, and then we've made it available. And it's available in a few game stores as well. Those of you who live in Austin, Texas, there's the famous Dragon's Lair games and comic store. They're carrying the Mobius Deck of Wonders. It's in Canada. There's a few stores in Canada that are carrying them. But so to answer your question about the Forged in Shadows, the same thing. Start fulfillment hopefully in March, and then once we fill all the backers and make sure everyone has their product and they're happy, then we'll make it available to the masses.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, just speaking of the Mobius deck and looking at the marketplace, not only can you buy the Deck of Wonders, but you guys also have a couple options for deck boxes to store your Mobius Deck of Wonders, which all look beautiful. They look like really good products
Yeah,
here.
so they're fantastic. They're the pictures are nice. They're beautiful pictures, but they don't do the boxes justice. Those were done by Dogmite Games. And they were one to participate in this one too, but because of COVID, they're in Michigan and their factory shut down for 2-3 months, so they're backloaded with orders that they needed to take care of first. So, but they're beautiful boxes, and we only have a few, handful few of them left. So there's two styles basically. There's the style that holds the deck as is, and there's a bigger box, a little taller, of those who want to put all your cards in sleeves. It'll fit 60 sleeved barrel-sized cards in there. And then there's one version without the felt or the suede insert at the bottom, and one without. So there's a couple options there. I think we're sold out on one of them, but yeah.
Gotcha.
And if you and so we are offering the Kickstarter a discounted price for the Mobius deck and the dice. So if you're not in a hurry to get your Mobius deck of Wonders or your Mystic Storm or Dragon's Mana dice, feel free to go to the marketplace and order there. Or if you rather have the discount and not in a hurry, you can back us on the Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad that you guys are committed to, making sure that your backers get their copies first, because that's definitely something that ends up rubbing people the wrong way if other people are able to get their hands on a thing before backers, even if what they're getting is better than what people are able to get their hands on. So it's definitely good to hear that you guys are so committed to that particular aspect of crowdfunding, and it's just a good practice that I feel like all companies should be participating in if they're going to be in this space.
Right, because without the backers, this it wouldn't be possible. So I feel like they're the ones who are taking the bulk of the risk and putting their faith in us and our product and our ideas, and without them, the Mobius Deck of Wonders, wouldn't be here. So I feel like we owe them that amount of respect and gratitude. At least make sure they have it in their hands first, before we make it available to the masses. And as a small company, we're a small mom and pop company, and it was tough. I mean, to go 3 or 4 months without any sales, during the COVID. But we felt that strongly about it. We felt that our backers needed to have it in their hands first.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Gotcha. Well, guys, this campaign, like we said, we're in the final 27 hours as of right now, as I'm looking at this page. And this will be on YouTube and on podcatchers tomorrow. So anyone who's listening to this after the fact or watching this after the fact, you still have time. You still have 24 hours or less to get this product, back it on Kickstarter. It is fully funded. You will be receiving a product, but definitely support what these guys are doing here. Now, as we, continue, the show and continue talking about this, if I remember correctly, you and your players, you guys are largely Pathfinder players. Is that correct?
Yeah, primarily. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I've not been able to talk about this with anyone. I've never played Pathfinder personally, but since it's come out between the time that you guys were last on the show and now, have you been able to play Pathfinder Second Edition, and what are your thoughts on it?
I'm real excited about it, and I'm ashamed to say that I have not. I did play test it. Actually, Kim and I play tested it at PAX U last December um, in Philadelphia, and it was just a short little one-off, hour-long session. So, but I got enough of a feel of it. I felt like it addressed a lot of the things about Pathfinder that I think most players and GMs had issues with. So, I mean, I love Pathfinder, but man, when you get up in the higher levels, especially as a GM, and you're trying to track all these pluses and minuses, even with using things like Hero Lab and stuff like that, it's really hard to role play in a combat situation, bad guys, and use them at their full abilities with all these different modifiers and situational modifiers. It's just really easy to forget those things, and it's just too much crunch. And I feel like second edition, at least that very short period of time that I played it and just talking with other players, kind of addressed that. And I think that's why fifth edition had such a big appeal, D&D fifth edition, is because it kind of went back less crunch and allowed more role playing. Obviously you don't want your combat sessions to last 10-12 hours. you, you want it to, you still have that combat experience, but still leave a lot of time for interaction between the characters and NPCs and the story. The combat, at least in my view, and I think in most people's view, should supplement the story, not pick up the entire game session. And sometimes, especially in higher level campaigns, Pathfinder 1.0 could be crunchy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've heard. I have friends who were playing a lot of Pathfinder before fifth edition came out, and before I, started playing with them. And the way they describe it, the stereotype of it being called Math Finder, I can see where that comes from.
Really, that's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean,
because you just.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying that you just have a lot of situational modifiers. I get +2 in this situation, I get minus in this, and I have a bonus in this situation. And when you're trying to role play a character, your mind shouldn't be focused on all these other details, and trying to remember all your. I mean, there's been several times in the game sessions where you're like, "Oh man, crap! I forgot I had a +2 to this," and it's hidden somewhere on your character sheet or in Hero Lab, and so yeah. I think something that's a little more, sometimes too simple the rules are they're just that, they're just too simple, and then sometimes they're too complex. I've never played like games like Rollmaster or Palladium games, but I have friends who have. These are old school games, and in 12-hour combat sessions. If you're into that, that if that's what it's fun for you, then that's great. For me and my players, we like the role playing aspect as much as we do the combat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I continuously go back to fifth edition. I feel like that balance is there. I know a lot of people who like their crunch feel like fifth edition is kind of samey and kind of light, but when it comes to, like you mentioned earlier, the popularity of RPGs and the ability for new players to come in, I could teach fifth edition to an 8-year-old.
Yep.
And that's something, that's a value that you can't underestimate when it comes to RPGs, because so many people back in the very early days before I was playing, before I was born, they got into RPGs as 8, 9, 10, 11 year olds
Yeah.
and learn the game that way. And so to have a system where you can more easily get younger people into the game, or teach new people how to play without them feeling like they're doing math homework, without them being overwhelmed by the infinite possibilities, or the crazy possibilities, or even wrong paths that they could go down that end up giving them characters that aren't viable in certain situations. That kind of stuff, while I know some people like it, for the majority of people, that's not going to be something that gets them to buy an RPG or gets them to stick with it. So I'm glad to hear that Pathfinder 2nd Edition has made some steps in that regard while still maintaining what makes Pathfinder unique.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it was, I think, I don't know that they would have, and this is just my speculation. I don't know that they would have made that change because, I mean, they've invested, as you know, has invested so much money in Pathfinder 1.0. It took 5th edition, in my opinion, kind of snapped them out and like, yeah, we really need to revamp this so that new players, because really that's the lifeblood of any game system, is getting influx. If you just have the same 100 people playing your game and not growing, your business is not going to grow either. And if you make it set your game system such that new players are going to be turned off, I think that's why 5th edition just flew off the shelves, because it introduced so many new players. And I think Pazio realized their error in that, and I'm glad that they did make that change, because this is all about inclusion and introducing. I mean, there's no greater joy for me to introduce new players to the game system. My eldest daughter, her husband's Hungarian, and although he speaks English and understands English, there's a language barrier gap there as far as words and understanding. But when they were here for Christmas last year, I ran them through 5th edition, and they were here for a week. And it was like, we live in the mountains in Colorado, so it was like, okay, you guys want to go to this mountain, or we got this hiking? No, we just keep playing playing this game. It's like we stayed in for the entire week. They were here instead of exploring the great outdoors. They were just so into game, and that's no greater joy for a GM than to have players that just they'd rather play than do anything else. And 5th edition helps with that because, like you said, it's got just enough crunch that satisfies most players and gives options, to have some variability. It's not so overwhelming for new players. And one thing I love about introducing new players to role playing is they don't know all the stats of the monsters. They don't know the best tactics, kill a troll, or just coming up on a skeleton is scary, and they're like, it's scary for them because they don't know what's going to happen. And that's how it should be, right? When your first level characters come across a horde of skeletons, you should pause and maybe crap your pants a little bit, even though you are heroes. And so I love that about new players, because they're not min-maxing. They don't already know all the ways to defeat every creature you come across. Oh, it's just another goblin, or it's just another orc. To them, this is a whole new experience, and so it's and it makes it fun for an old school PM who's been doing it for 25, 30 years too.
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar situation where I got my little sister was dating a guy who was into D&D, and so I conspired with him and my wife, who I taught 5th edition to. We're gonna run this game to introduce my little sister to role playing. And then as this unfolded over Thanksgiving, my older sister, who also does not care about gaming, wanted to get involved. My dad wanted to get involved, and my mom wanted to get involved. And so I taught 5th edition to my parents and my sisters, who up until this point could care less about any kind of RPG, and they had a blast.
That's awesome. That warms my heart. Isn't that a great feeling?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. They
I
loved
mean,
it. I didn't convert anyone to being like a full on RPG fanatic like you are, like I am, but they had a
right.
good time for 3 hours.
And you know what? And if it comes up in conversation or, somewhere and they're like, oh yeah, I did that. I experienced, it was a lot of fun. When I was growing up, role playing was still kind of taboo, especially with D&D in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, with the whole satanic thing. And then it wasn't cool to be a nerd or a gamer back then. Now celebrities are doing it and it's totally acceptable and cool. It's nice to be able to come out of the closet and just talk to openly about it. Even out, you're eating at a restaurant or in a bookstore or wherever at work, and you don't feel so self-conscious that you're being be put in a box as some weirdo nerd or something. It's nice to see that it's more widely accepted and people appreciate it, and it doesn't have the negative stigmatism that it used to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like right now, I'm wearing a D&D sweatshirt that I bought from Joe Manganiello's company. That's how ubiquitous this hobby has become, and it's great that we have this kind of influence, and we have things like Stranger Things that are getting people into RPGs and asking questions about what is this thing where people are rolling these dice and writing things on these notepads. And to tie it back into what we talked about in the beginning of the episode, it's good that we have tools like what you guys are developing for these new players, or for experienced players who are stuck in this one mode of play, to rediscover what it means, or to discover for the first time what it means to have a truly fleshed out, meaningful character that they actually care about playing, and that they can live in that headspace for 3 to 5 hours at a time,
Mm-hmm.
once to twice a week.
Yeah, it's very therapeutic, especially especially in times like this, to have some escapism and get away from reality for a while. Your brain needs that, and I know for myself, I kind of have a yin yang brain where I have a lot of technical things that I like to do. I'm good at math, but I also need that creative aspect fulfilled too. If I don't have that, I need that balance. And role playing games, tabletop role playing games, really help facilitate escapism and just remove yourself from the outside world and just and enjoying time with your friends and your family, having fun, and just all your worries aside for a few hours. And it's just we're actually working with we just donated some dice and some things to an organization that is doing that very same thing with young children, helping them become more socially um, um, active and come out of their shells. And role-playing games really help, is a great facilitator of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because ideally everyone's working towards a common goal, so it really promotes teamwork and working together and using that that creative muscle in your brain. It's really a lot of fun. I think people who haven't been exposed to it, I'm sure there's still hundreds of thousands, millions of people out there. If they'd only be exposed to it in the right way with the right people, there'd probably even more tabletop gamers out there, because it's just just a really fun experience, and so, and it's one of the things I really enjoy about this is getting new players involved. In fact, Forge of Shadows is perfect for that, because it's a very simplified system. You don't start out with tons of skills and abilities and spells and all this stuff. It's very simplified, but you still have a really solid character background, backstory, and that you can easily role play, and have fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about, having fun.
Absolutely.
My advice to every DM out there, is have fun first. If a rule is causing contention in the group, or none of that stuff matters. It's just a matter of having fun, everyone enjoying themselves, and yeah, it makes it a better experience for everyone if everyone's having fun.
Definitely. So guys, we're last 24 hours of this campaign. You still have time to back it. You still have time to, get your pledge in and make sure that you're, not missing out on any of these Kickstarter goodies. As we do at the end of all of these shows, obviously we have this campaign, but Michael, I just want to turn it over to you for these last few minutes to talk about anything you want to promote. Obviously the campaign's here, but anything else you want to shout out, go for it. It is your time to do so.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for your time, and an extension of our team. My wife Kim, appreciate all of you. Appreciate you, Ryan, having platforms like this for independent producers, gamers to help promote their products. And I did want to highlight one thing that's really important to us is so in our previous Kickstarter, in the Moby Stick of Wonders campaign, a lot of Kickstarter or managers have a jar that you can, will want to give a tip to the creators. But we chose to change that jar into a collection for the Extra Life for Kids campaign, and then we matched the funds that the backers contributed to that, and we donated to the charity board gamer Chris Goodlett, and helping children in need through gaming. So Extra Life for Kids is all about having fun, getting friends together, gaming, and raising money to help children and their families in need. So if you have a terminally ill child, or just a child that needs extra care, hospital stay, a lot of times, your insurance covers, or most of the medical costs. It doesn't cover the costs of the families driving hours back and forth in the hospital, or the hotel stays, or missing time at work. And the Extra Life for Kids campaign does that. It helps so that these families, they already have enough on their plate, that they can just focus on their child that needs help. And so that's something that is really near and dear to our hearts. And so we'll be doing the same thing for the Forge of Shadows Kickstarter Pledge Manager. Instead of having a jar, we'll collect funds and donate it to Extra Life for Kids.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, guys, that is going to do it for tonight's episode of Rollin' Bones. This will be up, for anyone who is audio exclusive, or, you watch on YouTube. You'll notice you'll be hearing this a day earlier. That's so that you can get in on, at the 11th hour, at the very last minute of this campaign, and help us, push this over the top and really unlock some of these final stretch goals here. Just to let you guys know what's coming up here on the channel this week. This Saturday, I'll be reviewing Andrew Kolb's Neverland setting. We talked to him last week about it. I'm going to be looking at it and giving my full thoughts and opinions on what Andrew has there. And, of course, this Tuesday, as I mentioned, tomorrow, as we are doing this stream, as you guys know, you've heard me talk about it with the guys from Project Full Blade a little bit. I am, of course, one of those crazy libertarians, and I will be happy to join tomorrow some of my fellow crazy libertarians in playing some Jackbox. So I will be on the Gamertarians Twitch channel, which you can find at twitch.tv/Gamertarians. Whether or not you are a member of the Liberty Movement, if you identify as a libertarian or not, if you just want to see me be a goofball on Jackbox and maybe hear a little bit about where my head is politically, that'll definitely be an opportunity for you. We've been trying to make this happen for a while now, but I will finally be joining Prax and Rez on Gamertarians. That is tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. I hope you guys will join. I'll be putting out all kinds of social media blasts about both this project, Forged in Shadows, and Gamertarians, my appearance on there. I hope you guys will join us because I'm excited for all of this. And I hope you'll join us for Danishes and Dragons on Saturday, where we'll be looking at Neverland 5e by Andrew Kolb. So until next time, guys, whether you rolled a 1 or a 20, I'm so glad that you rolled your bones with me, Ryan Howard, and I'll see you next time.